Hello, I'm Andy Moore. I'm the Executive Director of People Not Politicians. It's been a minute since we've done a brief campaign update or a update video about redistricting in Oklahoma. So I want to give you real quick kind of where we're at and what the next steps are over the next couple of months. So today, the U.S. Census Bureau officially released the 2020 census data. This is a huge thing, right? We've been waiting for this data for months and months and months. And it will allow states, whether it's the state legislature, an independent commission, some kind of third-party thing, whomever is drawing the maps in a given state, this data will allow them to do the official redistricting that happens every 10 years. Now, of course, in Oklahoma, we had really advocated and been pushing for an independent commission rather than the state legislature. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, and so it is up to the state legislature to do the right thing and to draw fair maps for Oklahoma. Now, there's lots of problems with this because basically it's politicians drawing maps for their own districts or the districts of their friends, so there's a clear conflict of interest. You wouldn't let the players be their own referees, and yet here we are. Now, what's happened already this year is that the state legislature has drawn the maps for the legislative seats, right? The state house and the state senate. They drew those in the spring and passed those, and they were signed into law. But the law contains an important caveat, and that is if the data that was released today indicates that any district they drew is above or below the ideal number, right? The equal number by more or less than 2.5% variance, then they have to go back in and redraw that. Now, we expect that at least some districts are going to be a little above or a little below. They were pretty close on most of their numbers, but there's always the chance. And if you adjust one district, you have to adjust some other districts around it. And so we'll be watching carefully to see how they do that. There are some questions about how this might play out when it comes to racial or ethnic minorities. You know, if there's an undercount in a given district among one group but not others, then the district might be skewed. And it really could be the difference between having a minority-majority district or not. And this really cuts to the core of why we do redistricting and to ensure that every American, that every Oklahoman has an equal voice, right? That one person, one vote, and that their vote all counts equally, and that we are equally and proportionally, to a degree, represented by our elected officials. So we'll be watching for that. And then secondly, the legislature will be redrawing Oklahoma's 5 congressional districts. Now, we don't expect there to be any big shifts, and the legislature just held a series of town hall meetings, 5 of them in person, 1 in each of the districts, plus 2 virtual meetings where they received public feedback from the general public about those maps. And it'll be interesting to see what decisions they make. Of course, I think the most contentious or most debated district is going to be the 5th district, which is Oklahoma County, most of Oklahoma County, some of Pottawatomie, Seminole County, and how they decide to shed some population from that area. Will they cut off the eastern part, the more rural part of the county, and bring it more just into Oklahoma County? Will they continue to keep Tinker Air Force Base in the 4th district down with Lawton and much of southwestern Oklahoma? We'll find out. For all of you who have provided feedback to the state legislature already, thank you so much. That's a huge help, and you still have time, right? So the actual map drawing won't be happening for at least a few days, and then it's going to continue over the next, we'll say, several weeks. So now that the data is released, it'll take a few days for resources like Dave's Redistricting app that the legislature has partnered with to allow public submission of maps. So once Dave's gets the data, they have to import all the data for all 50 states, and they expect it'll take them a few days to do that. Understandably so. They're a volunteer-led operation. Once they get that data in there, they'll let the state know, and it's sometime, probably next week, maybe the week after, the state will announce the deadline for the public submission of maps. And this will be like they did in the spring, but with only 5 congressional maps to draw, it's maybe easier, more approachable for members of the public to draw a map. So we'll be paying attention to that, and we will let you know when that date is made public as well. So there'll be a date that we have to submit maps, we the public, and the legislature will hold in-person presentations like they did in the spring for anyone who wants to come share their maps and present them to the redistricting committees. Once that process is over, they will be reviewing the maps that were publicly submitted and presumably behind the scenes drawing their own maps. And then sometime in October, they have said that will likely be when the special session occurs. So the legislature will have to come back for a special session, and it could just be for redistricting, although there are certainly calls for the special session to address other issues. A special session can only be called for and only address specific things. So whatever the call is for, the only things they can talk about or vote on and act on. And so we know redistricting will be one of, if not the main topic there. And then it'll be during that special session that they vote on these maps. I guess they'll be publicly available for comment. They should release them. It takes generally a minimum of 5 days for a bill to move through the legislative process, so we anticipate it'll be at least that long. However, based on precedent, I don't expect the legislature to be very forthcoming with information or to publish information quite as broadly as maybe we would like. Right? It's tough to reach 4 million Oklahomans and make sure that everyone knows this is happening. So we really encourage them to do everything they can do. If they do it like they did in the spring, which is, I guess, probably the best guess, they'll have a press conference, release the maps. Some of the news outlets will cover it and talk a little bit about it. Congressional redistricting tends to garner more headlines than state legislative redistricting. Whether that's right or wrong is inconsequential, but that's the way it usually happens. And so we'll see how they do this, how they roll it out. Up till now, the state legislature has made, I think, a solid effort to be fair and to be representative in their approach. However, this is the big time, right? This is the thing where they argue about a lot, and this is the thing where, depending how they draw the 5th district, which has flipped between both parties in recent elections, they will likely be trying to draw it in a way that is more secure for Republicans to maintain. Now, that's depending on where you fall on the political spectrum, right, left, center, or somewhere else, you may have feelings about that. And this gets back to my point at the beginning, is that politicians shouldn't really be allowed to draw their own districts. We will get to see this fall many states that already have independent commissions drawing their maps in a much more open, transparent, and fair way. And we hope that we can get that to be the law of the land here in Oklahoma sometime very soon, hopefully before the next redistricting in 2031. If you'd like to be involved, the way you can do it right now is by writing to your member of the legislature, to your House member or your Senate member, and letting them know your feedback about how you feel that these maps should be drawn. We will have information available as soon as we can. If you haven't already signed up for our email list somehow, I promise we will not blow you up with emails. Nobody's got time for that. Only stuff that's important and ideally something that you can act on when you receive that email. So you can go to peoplenotpoliticians.com and sign up on our email list there. Also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and we'll try to keep you informed as we move through this process together. Thanks a lot.